My phone blew up that afternoon. And he's back in the UK now, and he's back on the social media. 5 fights? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Listen, 5 fights would be amazing. Will it happen? Is it a reality? That's what we've got to ask ourselves.
I don't think it is a reality. I think if he fights Usyk and he beats Usyk and he fights Usyk twice and he beats AJ, I don't think he'll keep fighting. I don't think he'll fight Ngannou again. But who knows, Spencer?
And listen, we never know. With Tyson Fury, the unpredictability is what makes him interesting. We do know that. That is for sure. You know, like he has a big social media presence. He says things, you know, he speaks his mind a lot of the time. He says things, some things we agree with, some things we don't agree with. But all we want to do is we want to see this fight. It was unfortunate what happened there, you know, with that cut, the way that it happened. I know they've announced this new date. Turkey Al-Sheikh's announced this new date of May the 18th. The question I want to ask you, actually, about May the 18th. Is it too soon? I mean, the cut looked a bad one. I'm as an ex-fighter, so I know what, you know, and I've been cut exactly in that place.
Well, I say you ask me, you answer it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ask you, because you know Furies,
yes,
and I know you're in touch with them,
yes,
and everything else. So I'm going to ask you, but I'm just saying, I'll give you my side first, and then I'd like to ask you. So I'm saying from a fighter's point of view, when I've been cut, and I know like how bad it was a similar cut to Tyson's, actually, on the eyebrow there. It took me probably the best part of 2 months for it to heal. And then obviously he's got to go through that training, but it's the sparring process. We're talking about a 10-week camp, really, until that fight on May the 18th. Is it enough time to prepare the way that he needs to prepare for Alexander Usyk? I suppose that's the question I want to ask. I know everyone's optimistic and we want to get this undisputed fight, but is it enough time, Gareth?
Yeah, it is enough time. And listen, we don't know what's going to happen between now and May the 18th. We hope and pray symbol, inshallah, as they're saying out in Riyadh for the Kingdom Stadium, that the fight does go ahead on May the 18th. Talking to his team, the likes of Spencer Brown, his manager, hearing what people like Shane Fury, his brother's got to say, how he was on fire in camp, hearing that he was dominating sparring partners, by the way. Moses Town was out there, Jaya Pataya. My understanding of it was he was on fire in camp. He's chastened by that performance against Francis Ngannou, wants to prove something, and I think he can. I'm not sure that I am sure, rather, that they will not be taking Usyk lightly, and if he isn't ready to get in there, he's going to have to forfeit the 10 million. He won't. He'll step in there. As we know, he told His Excellency Turkey Al-Sheikh, I'll go in with it stitched up in 2 weeks' time. You can't. Boxers can hide injuries and go into fights. Perforated eardrums, broken ribs, shoulder injuries, elbow injuries. How rarely are fighters 100% when they go into battles anyway? But when it's such an obvious cut in an area that could easily open up like that, they can't go on. Fascinatingly, I'll just hold you, fascinatingly, the legendary Cutman Robert Stitch Durant, yes, I do think there's enough time, joined the Drive show yesterday, and he gave his opinion, did Stitch, on the Tyson Fury cut that's postponed this undisputed heavyweight title fight with Usyk. Here he is.
You know, he don't have to go in there, but let's say if he did, let's look at worst case scenario, and I always look at worst case scenario, right? Well, that's the type of cut that is very controllable. Let's say he goes out there and he gets cut in the first round, because it's the blood is going to come to the side of the eye, but not only that, it's just a long slit, and there's not that many veins there that would really. So a little bit of adrenaline chloride 1/1000 to as a vessel constrictor, and I think you would be able to control it where it wouldn't affect a fighter. But they did the right thing in postponing it.
It was external cuts, 11, I think. I mean, I've heard 11, 13, 15. It was a significant gash. No internals, which was really good. Stitch knows his onions, as does Ross Amber, Alexander Usyk's cut man. And they both have said that he could easily be ready in 3 months. I'm going to go with the experts. They'll put a lot of vitamin E on it. They'll get him in with the right nutrition. Remember, he's a multi-million-pound sports figure now. Yeah. He's a Rolls Royce in lots of ways. I think he will be ready, and I hope he's ready, because I think we all want to see this now. And it's a bigger fight now than it was 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely. Listen, I agree with that, and I think that what Stitch has done there is put to bed this this thing of will he be ready or will he not be ready? Because the interesting thing that I took from Stitch there was, and he knows better than anyone, this guy's been the best cut man in the business. He's been around for a long, long time. It was interesting to hear him say there.
He was cutting up, he was putting his dinosaurs together, wasn't he?
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's interesting him saying there it was the tissue that's torn and not the vessels.
And the vessel, exactly.
And that's the important thing. See, that's what we don't know. We just look at the gash and go, wow, that's never going to be ready in time. But if it's tissue repairing as opposed to the vessels, but I suppose the only concern that you've got for Tyson Fury going into a fight of that magnitude is that you look at it and go, well, you know, the tissue will still be soft by the time the fight comes around, and we hope that tissue doesn't reopen in sparring in the build-up to it.
I mean, I sincerely hope that we don't get... I mean, God forbid that there's going to be an Alexander Usyk injury now as well, because... you just don't know. I mean, weird things happen in our sports.
Yeah. And
it was one of those freak incidents. I mean, I just remember 5 hours of my life passing in like 2 minutes last Friday night. But I haven't had a chance on air to speak to you about this yet. I really do think they managed it in 24 hours absolutely brilliantly. And when you hear the background, how they all got round a table, that they got everyone together, they got on a dual cast together on Ariel Helwani's MMA show, which is a very big show with a big reach. And you know, obviously you were broadcasting at the time. I was actually at home off, and I was fascinated with how it was handled. Loads of things were revealed at the time by Turki Al-Sheikh about listen, I'm sticking by this guy. We want this fight to go ahead. I'm pinning my colours to the mast. We've got Beterbiev and Bivol happening on June the 1st. We've got Eddie versus Frank. We'll talk to Eddie about that in a minute. We are going ahead with this. We are, and I'm not denigrating anyone else in boxing, Spencer, but what we got was resolution, conflict resolution, if you like, in 26 hours that absolutely dealt with it and crushed every conspiracy out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, where were the conspiracies coming from? You know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, a fight of this magnitude, when a fight like that happens... you got to, you know, with Tyson Fury, I think he had to expect this backlash anyway, because obviously, you know, Tyson Fury's, you know, he's been guilty of that himself in fights before, going back to...
Well, David Hay was very magnanimous about it.
2013.
10 years ago, I remember covering
2013.
it. And there were theories, well, it's out there. Tyson Fury said at the time, David's run away from me, what's happened here? I thought David, in his videos this week on social media, was very benevolent about Tyson and wished him well. And he wasn't spiteful or malicious about it in any way whatsoever. And you know why? Well, you know what it showed? He understood the disappointment and depression that Fury will have gone through when he cut his eye. That moment of knowing that the fight is off because you can't do anything about it. And you've been there. You're in shock.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're actually in shock.
I think what you can understand is, though, like, you know, when something like that happens and then people start talking, it's always going to happen. It's always going to, you know, the social media will fly around and people will talk and they'll ask about, you know, is it legit? Is it, you know, is it an old video, etc., etc. That's always going to happen when something like that happens, especially when it happens with someone like Tyson Fury, who's been guilty a little bit with that as well.
Before we go to Eddie Hearn, let's look at that 5-point plan for a moment. I think there will be 2 fights with Usyk. I see 1 fight with Anthony Joshua. I'm not sure I see another fight with Francis Ngannou. I think, in my view, if I was to look into a crystal ball, I see 3 fights. Because he doesn't need to do anything else, in my view. I don't know how you see it.
No, I'm with you on that. I see 3 fights as well. That's where I see Tyson Fury's sort of career. I think that they're the fights that he needs as well. And this is the way that I see them, actually, Gareth. I see Alexander Usyk, and I don't see the immediate rematch. I see Usyk, and I see Joshua, and I see Usyk.
Why don't you see... I see it's Joshua in the middle. But maybe not... After this one, all the belts won't be there, I don't think.
No, I don't know.
It doesn't matter then at that point, does it?
This is about modern eras and
legacies. It's about legacies. And okay, that's interesting. See Joshua in the middle.
I see Joshua in the middle.
That's a really good shout, you know. And then if they feel like having it afterwards with Usyk, the second fight, maybe they'll have it. That's a really good call.